The Biden family, notably Hunter Biden, is a huge liability for the Democrat media because he's done so much stuff that is not only illegal and indefensible, even though he got the sweetheart deal, but also on top of all that, we recognize that he was selling out his country effectively. That's what Hunter was doing. He was selling access to China, which for a lot of people would cause big problems with the law, not for Hunter Biden. But then you also have the Joe Biden. You know, the family's getting hit in a lot of places. Joe Biden, it has come out, not only denies one of his grandchildren, but was doing so explicitly on the orders of political aides who thought that this was an inconvenient thing for him, which I actually completely disagree with this notion that anyone in politics should have understood that forget about the ethics of it, Clay, just on an appearance level, to deny a grandchild is it's so grotesque. I mean, it's so weird, so off-putting. Anyway, but the ladies of The View, or at least one of them, trying to make the case that this is just the way it has to be because, Clay, we're weaponizing things against Hunter. We are weaponizing Hunter, and that's the real problem.
President Biden doesn't need to overstep his son. I like that part, but I don't know why they go out of their way to say 6 grandchildren or 4 kids. When my parents talk about me, they say, we love all our kids. We love our grandbabies. I've never seen them numerically repeat over and over. I like 3 kids. I like 4 this.
The reason that's happening is because the right wing, who again is weaponizing everything related to Hunter, keeps asking, so how many children do you have, Mr.
No, it's
grandchildren do you have?
Well,
maybe Maureen Dowd should find something else to write about.
Yeah, write about something else.
I'm sorry. You know, these things are, for me, when you start talking about people's families and what they're doing, I find it unnecessary. This is not anybody's business. Nobody needed to know about this. No. This is private.
It's so stupid, Clay, it's hard to even know where to begin.
I'm fired up about this, okay? Joe Biden makes his entire political identity that he is a loving father, grandfather, and they specifically say and instructed all White House staff to say, we have 6 grandchildren. And I want every single grandparent out there listening to me right now to ask yourself this question. It actually isn't uncommon at all to ask, how many grandchildren do you have? That is actually one of the foundational questions that everyone of a grandparent-like age gets asked. I get asked, Buck. I have 3 kids all the time. If you're a parent, you get asked, how many kids do you have? And then once your kids are grown, you get asked, how many grandkids do you have? I was just in Chicago, Buck. Went to a wedding. Met a fantastic grandfather there. He was the grandfather of the groom. One of the first questions I asked him was, how many kids did you have? He had 2. How many grandkids do you have? He has 5. That is one of the first things you ask someone when you meet them about their family. And he's run specifically, Buck. This is where I'm so fired up about this. He's run specifically on being such a good guy, being such a great grandfather. Buck, I've got 3 boys, as I just said. If at some point in time, those 3 boys grow up and they have a kid, and I refuse to acknowledge one of their kids as my grandkid, it will be a failure of mine. Period. It will be. Now, you can say, well, the way that grandchild was created is different than the others. Yeah, right, because your son is a drug addict, but that's not the little girl's fault. That's not the 4-year-old living in Arkansas's fault.
It also was not going to be something, I think the false, there's a lot of false analysis around this, a lot of nonsense, but it's not Joe Biden's fault if he has a grandkid who's out of wedlock. In fact, all it does is provide an opportunity for Joe Biden as the president of the United States, who, as you rightly point out, has always pointed to his family and his paternal love for Hunter is why we're supposed to stop asking questions. His role as a grandfather is why we're not supposed to criticize him for having dementia. Like they're using this to their advantage, but this is a perfect opportunity for him to be like, look, folks, I'm a president, but I'm also a grandpa, and this is my granddaughter, and now he's doing that, which is what's so interesting, because everyone realized the other thing, the don't talk about this in public, was just so gross. It showed such a lack of character. There are some things that a person should, there's no excuse for and should never do, a lot of things. But one of them would be to deny a grandchild in the final years of your, in the twilight of your life, you're like, that's not my grandkid because it was out of wedlock? Really?
Yeah, he's 80. This little girl's 4. I want every single person out there to be able to meet their grandparents. I mean, that's a huge part, if you're fortunate enough to be able to do so, of being a child. Even if one of your grandparents happens to be estranged from the family, it's still a big deal. Buck, how often now do we see people going to 23andMe or Ancestry.com because they're desperately seeking a connection with their family, even if they're adopted, right? I bet there's a ton of adopted people out there listening to us right now who had to make that choice. Hey, do I want to know who my natural birth parents are? Do I want to have a relationship as an adult with people that I didn't know when I was a child? Maybe you even find out that you have relatives you didn't know that you had. This is, I think, something that many people grapple with on a regular basis. Buck, the other thing is here, they barred this little girl from being able to use the last name Biden.
Yes. Which is, this continues. It's not like they've really decided to embrace, some Christian love and values here in
super
this
cruel.
case.
Now, she may not, when she becomes older, want to have the name Biden. She may decide, hey, my mom stood by me. I want to have my mom's name. But the idea that you would bar, as part of a settlement agreement, a 4-year-old child from ever being able to take the name of its father is also incredibly insulting to me. And it goes to Joe Biden's character. I think this is very important.
Well, that's why it's so significant, because no one makes the case. Joe Biden, you don't hear this. Joe Biden's so smart. Even the most, ardent Democrat partisan, they don't walk around saying, who's really, really smart? That Joe Biden guy. That guy is a genius. I mean, maybe you'll hear some clowns say it, but generally speaking, the whole premise of Biden as a politician who has been foisted on America is that he's a good guy. He's somebody who he's kind and has a solid moral core. And I've been saying there is no evidence of this in his public life at all. In fact, the evidence is all to the contrary. But this moment in time, it goes to the fundamental narrative of Biden and shows that it's a lie. It has political consequences, Clay, which is why the left, the Democrats, are a little rattled about this one, because they're going to try to fool independents again into thinking Joe Biden's, he's a normal, good guy. He's a kindly old grandpa. Really? Not so much.
I'd like to hear from grandparents out there. 800-282-2882. When you hear the View people say, nobody really talks about how many grandchildren you have. That's all I hear. I think a huge part of being a grandparent is how many grandchildren you have. It's something you take immense pride in. And Buck, remember, they fought to keep this kid from using the name Biden. They denied the parental legitimacy of this child to the point they had to go through all of the DNA testing and everything else. All Joe Biden had to do, Buck, all he and Dr. Jill had to do was just say we have 7 grandchildren. And this wouldn't have turned into a huge story, because I don't think, to Whoopi Goldberg's point, I don't think people would have been pouring through the specifics. If Hunter pays his child support, and if Joe Biden acknowledges that they have a 7th child, even if it's an out-of-wedlock relationship, I don't think people are going to be pouring through all of the dirty details of the family history as it pertains to her parental lineage. It's the fact that he denied her and refused to admit the truth, which was he has 7 grandchildren. And I don't know. I mean,
I think it's worth reminding everybody.
So insulting.
There's nothing that Joe Biden won't lie about while pretending to be this honorable, ethical guy. There's nothing that and it's not salesmanship. It's not, braggadocio, as you might see in some other politicians that we like here. He will lie about the most core and fundamental things. And he said that he ran for president in 2020 because of the Trump good people on both sides speech, for example.
Yes.
I mean, he's just being an insidious liar. He knows that that's not what Trump was actually saying. But
I actually, to be fair to him, I think he's so dumb he might actually not know the truth. Like, he might still believe that Trump really said the very fine people thing.
This is when people say to me, do you think is he being cynical and immoral, or is he just senile and doesn't know what's going on? And the answer is always tough to tell. tough call, you know?
We know the answer on the grandparents. He knows he has 7 grandkids. Like, this is a direct targeted attack upon the legitimacy of one of his grandchildren, which goes to the very essence of his character and fitness, which he claims particularly justifies him uniquely to be president.
Can I just, if Don Jr. or Eric had an illegitimate child with a stripper that he then, one of them refused to pay child support for and refused to even admit was their child, I don't think any of the ladies in The View would be like, talk about something else. This isn't even a story.
Yeah, and if Trump denied the grandchild existed, it would be front page news, and it would have been for months. I mean, there's zero doubt. I mean, again, all this stuff. I mean, the cocaine story's kind of vanished, but if there had been cocaine found in the Trump White House and they had said where it was found and then said, oh, we have no idea who did it, it would be a direct attack upon our nation's democratic processes that we don't know who had the cocaine. Now everybody seems like by Monday are just like, oh, we don't care.